A security guard kicks Snoop Dogg out of his own concert, unaware of his true identity. What happens next turns a moment of humiliation into a powerful lesson on respect. The lights of the open-air concert venue sparkled against the evening sky, casting a glow over the bustling crowd. Fans streamed in through the gates, their excitement palpable as they prepared to see the headlining act, none other than the legendary Snoop Dogg. Vendors shouted over the hum of chatter, selling everything from glow sticks to band merchandise. The distant bass of opening acts reverberated through the air, setting the perfect tone for what was sure to be an unforgettable night. Amidst the throng of attendees, a man moved with quiet confidence. Dressed in an understated hoodie, loose jeans, sunglasses, and a bucket hat, he blended seamlessly with the crowd. No one spared him a second glance, assuming he was just another fan. But this was no ordinary man. It was Snoop Dogg himself, choosing to enjoy the energy of the event before taking the stage. Snoop loved mingling incognito. It gave him a chance to reconnect with his audience without the constant pressure of fame. Tonight, he strolled through the VIP section's outer boundary, casually observing the buzz around the venue. Fans were snapping selfies, laughing, and debating which song he might open with. As Snoop soaked in the atmosphere, a burly security guard named Jack Peterson noticed him. Jack, with his stern expression and authoritative air, was known for his rigid enforcement of rules. A man in his mid-40s with a thick-set build, a shaved head, and a no-nonsense demeanor. Jack was infamous for making snap judgments about people. Jack's eyes narrowed as he watched Snoop linger near the VIP entrance. He immediately pegged the casually dressed man as someone who didn't belong. Tightening his grip on his radio, Jack approached with deliberate steps, his boots crunching against the gravel. "Hey, you!" Jack barked, stopping Snoop mid-stride. "This area's off limits unless you've got a VIP pass. Let's see it." Snoop turned to face him, his calm demeanor unshaken. "No problem, man," he said, reaching into his pocket. "I'm just checking things out." Jack scrutinized him, his eyes scanning Snoop's attire with barely concealed disdain. "I don't think you're supposed to be here," Jack said dismissively, his tone dripping with skepticism. Unbothered, Snoop pulled out his pass and held it up. Jack grabbed it, inspecting it like a counterfeit bill. "This doesn't look right," Jack muttered, ignoring the official stamp and details on the pass. Snoop raised an eyebrow but kept his tone steady. "It's legit. I promise you, I'm good to be here." But Jack wasn't interested in hearing explanations. He handed the pass back with a sharp motion. "Step back, buddy. You're not getting through." Around them, a few fans started to take notice. Some murmured among themselves, whispering that the man being questioned looked oddly familiar. Jack, however, dismissed their whispers, doubling down on his assumption that Snoop was out of place. The night was only beginning, but the stage was set for a confrontation that would flip the script in ways no one expected. Jack Peterson, the burly security guard, stood his ground with a smug expression, confident he was in control of the situation. He crossed his arms over his chest, towering over the casually dressed man before him. "I've seen this before," Jack muttered, loud enough for nearby fans to hear. "People trying to sneak into the VIP area like they're entitled to something." Snoop Dogg remained calm, his relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to Jack's aggression. "Look, I'm not here to cause any trouble," he said evenly, trying to diffuse the tension. "I've got every right to be here." Jack's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Every right, huh? And I suppose you think I'm supposed to just take your word for it?" Around them, a small crowd began to gather. Some fans whispered to each other, pointing at Snoop and recognizing him despite his incognito attire. "That's Snoop Dogg," one young woman whispered to her friend, her phone already out to record the exchange. Unfazed by the growing attention, Jack gestured toward the exit. "Move along," he said curtly. "We don't need people like you hanging around causing problems." Snoop's brows furrowed at the thinly veiled insult, but he didn't lash out. Instead, he folded his arms and asked calmly, "People like me? What exactly does that mean?" Jack scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I mean. Dressed like that, hanging around where you don't belong. I've dealt with enough troublemakers in my time to know one when I see one." Snoop glanced around at the onlookers, some of whom were recording the interaction on their phones. His patience was wearing thin, but he refused to give Jack the satisfaction of a heated reaction. "Man, you're making a mistake," he said, his voice low but steady. Jack took a step closer, his presence almost menacing. "The only mistake here is you thinking you can talk your way out of this. I don't care who you think you are. You're leaving now." A few fans stepped forward, trying to intervene. "That's Snoop Dogg," one of them exclaimed. "You're kicking out Snoop Dogg." Jack turned to glare at the interrupter. "I don't care if he says he's the president. Rules are rules." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, but Jack remained oblivious to the gravity of his actions. He grabbed his radio and called for backup. Moments later, 2 additional security guards arrived. "Escort this guy out," Jack ordered, pointing at Snoop. The guards hesitated, recognizing the man in question, but Jack's authority left little room for argument. Snoop sighed, shaking his head as the guards flanked him. "All right," he said, his tone calm but resolute. "Let's see where this goes." As Snoop was escorted toward the exit, the crowd erupted into a mixture of boos and protests. Phones captured every moment, and whispers of disbelief rippled through the venue. "They're seriously kicking out Snoop Dogg?" one fan said incredulously. Jack stood tall, basking in his perceived victory, unaware that his actions would soon backfire spectacularly. The commotion at the VIP entrance had captured the attention of nearly everyone nearby. As Snoop Dogg was flanked by 2 security guards, whispers turned into gasps, and gasps turned into outright protests. Fans began pulling out their phones, recording the unbelievable scene unfolding before their eyes. Snoop, walking calmly between the guards, kept his head high. He didn't argue, didn't lash out. He didn't need to. His composed demeanor only added to the growing confusion among the fans. The crowd, many of whom had purchased tickets specifically to see him perform, couldn't believe what they were witnessing. "Are they serious right now?" a teenage boy said, holding up his phone to record. "That's Snoop Dogg. He's the main act." The 2 security guards escorting Snoop looked uncomfortable, clearly aware of who he was. But under Jack's direct orders, they followed through. Jack, meanwhile, remained at the VIP gate, puffing out his chest and muttering to himself about entitled rule breakers. As Snoop reached the main exit, one fan stepped forward. "You're kicking out Snoop Dogg," she shouted. "Do you even know who he is?" Jack, who had followed the group to ensure the removal, sneered. "I don't care who he claims to be. He doesn't have the right credentials, and I'm not playing favorites." Snoop finally turned to face Jack directly. "Man, you don't even realize what you're doing," he said, his voice steady but edged with disappointment. Jack waved him off. "Save the speeches for someone who cares. You're out." With that, Snoop walked past the gate, his casual stroll almost defiant. He was met with a flurry of camera flashes and more murmurs from fans who had gathered outside. Once Snoop was out of earshot, Jack turned back to the crowd. "All right, people, show's over," he barked, trying to regain control. Inside the venue, word of the incident began spreading like wildfire. Some fans posted videos to social media, tagging the event's official account and captioning their outrage. "Security just kicked out Snoop Dogg. How does this even happen?" Meanwhile, Snoop contacted his team, who were stationed backstage. His longtime manager, Darius, answered the call. "Yo, what's going on? Why aren't you backstage yet?" Snoop chuckled, though the irritation was clear in his voice. "Man, you're not gonna believe this. Your boy just got kicked out of his own concert." Darius's voice rose in disbelief. "What? Who? By who?" "Security," Snoop replied. "Some guy named Jack decided I didn't belong near the VIP area." Darius wasted no time. "Stay put. I'm coming to get you." Back inside, chaos erupted among the event organizers as the news reached them. The stage manager, a young woman named Carla, ran to the head organizer, nearly out of breath. "We've got a problem," she said. "Snoop Dogg just got escorted out by security." The head organizer froze. "Excuse me?" "I'm serious," Carla said, pulling up a live video someone had posted. "Look at this. He's outside the venue right now." The realization hit like a lightning bolt. Staff scrambled to locate Jack and figure out how such an egregious mistake had happened. Fans were now chanting outside, their collective voice growing louder. "Let Snoop in. Let Snoop in." When Darius arrived at the gate, He brought along several members of Snoop's entourage, including a visibly flustered event manager. Together, they escorted Snoop back inside, this time with a larger crowd watching. Jack, oblivious to the gravity of the situation, approached again. "I thought I told you—" The event manager cut him off sharply. "Jack, stand down. Right now." Jack blinked in confusion. "What? Why?" The manager gestured toward Snoop. Her voice dropping to a hiss. "That is Snoop Dogg, the headliner, the reason this entire crowd is here." Jack's face drained of color as he finally grasped the truth. "What? That's not possible. I mean, he didn't look—" Snoop raised an eyebrow but said nothing, letting Jack's own words hang in the air. As the security guard stammered, the crowd erupted into cheers. Snoop gave them a casual wave, his calm confidence intact. He turned to the event manager and said, "Let's take this conversation somewhere private. I've got some things to say." The scene ended with Jack's stunned expression, the weight of his actions finally sinking in as he watched Snoop Dogg walk away, the cheers of the crowd echoing in the distance. Backstage, chaos erupted as word spread that Snoop Dogg had been kicked out of the concert venue. Staff and event organizers scrambled, their panic rising with each passing minute. Carla, the stage manager, held her phone tightly, her voice trembling as she explained to the head organizer. "It's all over social media. Fans are saying Snoop Dogg was escorted out by security. This is a disaster." The head organizer's face turned pale. "Find him. Now," he ordered. "And get that security guard over here immediately." Meanwhile, outside the venue, Snoop Dogg stood near the entrance, surrounded by a growing crowd of fans who had followed him out. People were chanting his name, some shouting their outrage at the apparent injustice. Snoop, ever the professional, remained calm and collected, though his disappointment was evident. Moments later, his team arrived, led by his longtime manager Darius. Flanked by bodyguards and event managers, Snoop was escorted back into the venue. The fans erupted in cheers as they watched him return, capturing the moment on their phones. Inside, Jack Peterson stood at his post, still oblivious to the magnitude of his mistake. When he spotted Snoop and the entourage approaching, his smug demeanor faltered slightly. The sight of event organizers hurrying alongside Snoop, their expressions a mix of panic and urgency, began to chip away at his confidence. "Snoop Dogg," the head organizer said breathlessly as he reached the group. "I am so sorry for what happened. This is completely unacceptable. Please let us make this right." Snoop nodded coolly. "We'll talk about that later. First, I want to have a word with your security guard here." All eyes turned to Jack, who was now visibly nervous. He stammered, I didn't realize." "That much is obvious," Snoop interrupted, his tone calm but firm. "You didn't even ask who I was. You just assumed." Jack's face turned red as he tried to defend himself. "I was just doing my job. I thought you didn't belong in the VIP area." "And why's that?" Snoop pressed. "Was it the way I was dressed? The way I looked? Or was it just easier for you to jump to conclusions?" The gathered crowd of staff and onlookers fell silent, the weight of Snoop's words hanging heavily in the air. Jack opened his mouth to respond, but couldn't find the words. Snoop took a step closer, his voice steady but cutting. "You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected the fans, the team, and this entire event. This isn't just about me. It's about how you treat people." Fans outside the venue continued chanting as videos of the incident began circulating online. Clips showing Snoop being escorted out, paired with the crowd's growing outrage, gained traction at lightning speed. Inside, Snoop turned to the head organizer. "I'm here to perform for my fans. That's my focus right now. But this?" He gestured toward Jack. "This needs to be addressed." The organizer nodded emphatically. "It will be, Mr. Dogg, I promise you." Jack, now fully grasping the gravity of his actions, could only stand in stunned silence as Snoop walked past him, heading toward the stage. The cheers from the crowd outside grew louder as the superstar re-entered the venue, ready to turn the night around. The tension in the air was palpable as the event organizers scrambled to address the fallout from the incident. By the time Snoop Dogg was comfortably backstage, surrounded by his team, The head organizer had already called an emergency meeting with the staff. Jack Peterson stood to the side, his arms folded tightly across his chest, his usually smug expression replaced by visible discomfort. The head organizer, visibly angry, addressed the room. "Let me be clear. What happened tonight is unacceptable. Kicking out the headliner of our event due to baseless assumptions is beyond unprofessional." Jack's face reddened, but he remained silent. He knew there was no way to justify what he had done, especially with multiple videos of the incident now trending online. Fans had uploaded clips showing Snoop being escorted out, along with captions like, "How do you kick out the star of the show?" and "Ma, respect for Snoop," dominating social media. Snoop, despite his frustration, maintained his composure. Standing alongside the event organizer, he addressed the staff directly. "Look, I'm not here to make a scene," he began, his voice calm but firm. "But this isn't just about me. It's about how people are treated. Fans, guests, everyone. Respect isn't optional." The gathered staff murmured in agreement, though Jack remained stone-faced, his gaze fixed on the floor. The head organizer turned to Jack, his voice stern. "Effective immediately. You are suspended pending a full investigation into your behavior. This incident reflects poorly on all of us, and it's not going to be swept under the rug." Jack opened his mouth to protest, but quickly thought better of it. Instead, he gave a curt nod, his jaw clenched in frustration. Snoop, noticing Jack's reluctance, addressed him directly. "Man, I'm not saying this to embarrass you. I'm saying it because it's bigger than both of us. You made a mistake, but what matters now is how you learn from it." The humility in Snoop's tone struck a chord with some staff members, who nodded in agreement. Even Jack seemed to soften, though his expression remained guarded. Outside the venue, the fans were still buzzing about the incident. Media outlets had caught wind of the story, with some reporters already writing about the unbelievable moment when a security guard had kicked out Snoop Dogg. The head organizer, recognizing the potential for reputational damage, decided to hold a brief press conference. Standing before a group of reporters, he issued a public apology. "On behalf of the entire team, we deeply regret the incident involving Mr. Snoop Dogg earlier this evening. We take full responsibility for what happened and are committed to making changes to ensure this never happens again." When asked for a comment, Snoop stepped forward, addressing the cameras with his trademark poise. "It's not about pointing fingers," he said. "It's about learning and growing. Events like this should bring people together, not tear them apart. I'm here for the fans, and I want to make sure they know that." The press conference ended with applause from the crowd, both inside and outside the venue. Snoop's graceful response earned him even more admiration, while the organizers vowed to turn the incident into a teachable moment. As the night wore on, the story of Snoop Dogg being kicked out of his own concert spread like wildfire. Fans who had witnessed the incident firsthand uploaded videos and shared their outrage across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtags like "Respect for Snoop," "Hush, change the rules," and "Concert fail" began trending within hours. The most shared clip featured Snoop walking calmly out of the venue while fans chanted his name in protest. Another video captured the moment when Jack arrogantly dismissed concerns about Snoop's identity, further fueling the public's anger. "This is why we need better training in events like these," one user tweeted, attaching a video of the confrontation. "How do you not recognize Snoop Dogg? It's not just disrespectful, it's embarrassing." Within hours, major news outlets picked up the story. Headlines like, "Security guard kicks out Snoop Dogg," "An unbelievable concert blunder," and "Snoop Dogg turns disrespect into a teachable moment," flooded online news feeds. Cable news segments replayed clips of the incident, dissecting the security guard's actions and the broader implications of racial profiling and snap judgments in public spaces. Snoop Dogg, ever the professional, decided to address the issue head-on. He appeared on a popular late-night talk show the following evening, where the host wasted no time asking him about the incident. "So, Snoop," the host said with a chuckle, "how does it feel to get kicked out of your own concert?" Snoop leaned back in his chair, flashing his signature smile. "Man, it's funny now. But at the time, it wasn't about me. It was about respect, or the lack of it. And let's be real, if it happened to me, It's probably happening to a lot of other people who don't have the platform to speak out. The audience erupted into applause as Snoop continued. Look, I'm not mad at the dude. I'm mad at the system that allows this kind of behavior to go unchecked. It's a wake-up call, not just for this venue, but for all events like it. The clip from the talk show went viral, further cementing Snoop's reputation as a class act and an advocate for change. Fans, celebrities, and even other event organizers chimed in with their support. Shout out to @SnoopDogg for turning a bad situation into a positive movement, one A-list actor tweeted. We need more people like him calling out these issues. Back at the concert venue, the head organizer watched the social media fallout unfold. While the incident was a PR nightmare, the widespread coverage brought unexpected attention to the event itself. Some fans who had missed the concert expressed renewed interest in attending future shows, intrigued by how the situation was handled. Local advocacy groups also reached out to Snoop, thanking him for using his platform to highlight the broader issues at play. One organization even invited him to speak at an upcoming event, promoting equality and inclusion in public spaces. As the story continued to make waves, it became clear that this wasn't just a blunder. It was a cultural moment. Fans celebrated Snoop's ability to remain calm and turn the incident into a powerful statement about respect and accountability. By the end of the week, the incident had sparked conversations far beyond the music industry. From corporate boardrooms to social media comment sections, people were discussing how to prevent similar situations in the future. Snoop had not only reclaimed his dignity, but had also ignited a movement that would ripple through the event management world for years to come. The aftermath of the incident marked a turning point, not just for the concert organizers, but for the event industry as a whole. The viral videos and widespread media coverage forced the organizers to take a hard look at their policies and practices. They realized that this wasn't just about one security guard's mistake. It was a symptom of deeper issues rooted in systemic biases and poor training. Snoop Dogg, ever the diplomat, met with the head organizer and senior staff the morning after the concert. The meeting was held in a spacious conference room at the venue, where the organizers nervously awaited Snoop's arrival. As he entered, his presence commanded the room, but his demeanor was calm and approachable. Let's get one thing straight, Snoop began, his voice steady but firm. I'm not here to cancel anyone. I'm here to make sure this doesn't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. The staff exchanged glances, relieved but still apprehensive. The head organizer nodded. Mr. Dogg, we're deeply sorry for what happened. We've already suspended the security guard in question and are reviewing our protocols. That's a start, Snoop replied. But suspending one person isn't enough. This is about the bigger picture. How are you training your staff? What kind of culture are you creating here? The room fell silent as Snoop's words sank in. He leaned forward, his gaze sweeping across the table. If I'm being honest, what happened to me is a small part of a bigger problem. How many other people have been treated the same way, but don't have the platform to call it out? The head organizer cleared his throat. You're absolutely right. We've already started drafting new policies to address this. We want to implement mandatory training for all staff, focused on diversity, inclusion, and customer service. We'll also establish an anonymous feedback system for both employees and attendees. Snoop nodded approvingly. Good. But make sure it's not just a one-time thing. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes commitment. The organizers left the meeting with a clear mandate: to overhaul their approach to event management and make respect and inclusivity core values. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to implement the changes. The first step was a complete review of the security protocols. The team partnered with diversity experts to design a comprehensive training program. The training sessions covered topics like unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and effective communication. Attendance was mandatory for all staff, from entry-level employees to senior management. The organizers also introduced a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior. Any future incidents would be met with immediate investigation and potential termination. To ensure accountability, they established an anonymous reporting system, allowing both staff and attendees to voice concerns without fear of retaliation. As part of the fallout, Jack Peterson, the security guard at the center of the controversy, faced significant consequences. He was suspended without pay and required to attend the same training sessions as the rest of the staff. During one session, Jack listened as the facilitator explained how biases can cloud judgment and lead to unfair treatment. For the first time, he began to understand the impact of his actions, not just on Snoop, but on everyone who had witnessed the incident. After the training, Jack was required to write a formal apology to Snoop and the event organizers. In his letter, he admitted to making assumptions and expressed regret for his behavior. Whether he truly internalized the lessons remained ambiguous, but his actions served as a warning to others in the organization. The changes didn't stop with the concert organizers. Other venues and event management companies took note of the incident and began reevaluating their own practices. Industry forums and conferences highlighted the event as a case study in the importance of diversity and respect. Snoop's willingness to address the issue publicly inspired others to follow suit. Several high-profile artists shared their own experiences with prejudice in the industry, adding momentum to the call for systemic reform. Months later, the changes began to bear fruit. The venue adopted a more welcoming atmosphere, and staff members reported feeling more confident in handling diverse situations. Attendees noticed the difference too, leaving positive feedback about the respectful and inclusive environment. For Snoop, the incident became a catalyst for broader advocacy. He partnered with organizations to create programs promoting equality in public spaces, ensuring that no one else would have to endure what he had experienced. Sometimes, Snoop said in a later interview, it takes a tough moment to spark real change. But when you stay calm and keep your focus, you can turn that moment into something powerful. The incident at the concert became more than just a moment of viral outrage. It became a turning point for Snoop Dogg's advocacy efforts. Recognizing the influence of his platform, Snoop decided to use the situation as an opportunity to spark meaningful change beyond the music industry. Within days of the event, Snoop announced a partnership with multiple organizations dedicated to promoting equality, diversity, and respect in public spaces. At a press conference, he spoke passionately about the need for systemic reform. "What happened to me isn't unique," he said. "There are thousands of people who face prejudice every day, but they don't have a crowd chanting their name or a camera capturing the moment. This is for them." Snoop's words resonated deeply, and the response was overwhelming. Advocacy groups, fans, and fellow artists rallied behind him, offering their support and sharing their own stories of discrimination. Snoop funded scholarships specifically for security personnel and event staff to undergo advanced training in cultural sensitivity and conflict resolution. "If we want things to get better, we have to start at the foundation," he explained. "Education is the first step." He also launched a campaign called Respect in Every Space, aimed at encouraging inclusivity in all public venues. The campaign included workshops, community events, and online resources for both individuals and organizations looking to improve their practices. One notable initiative was a series of seminars for event organizers, focusing on how to create welcoming environments for diverse audiences. These sessions were led by industry experts and featured Snoop as a keynote speaker. The impact of Snoop's efforts was immediate and far-reaching. Event management companies began adopting his recommendations, implementing stricter policies against discriminatory behavior. High-profile artists joined the movement, sharing their platforms to amplify the message. Snoop's advocacy also extended to his music. In his next album, he included a track titled "Respect on My Name," which addressed the importance of standing up to prejudice while promoting unity and understanding. The song became an anthem for the movement, with its powerful lyrics and emotional resonance inspiring listeners worldwide. Fans were particularly moved by how Snoop turned a negative experience into a force for good. On social media, people shared stories of how his advocacy inspired them to challenge unfair treatment in their own lives. One fan wrote, "Snoop didn't just stand up for himself, he stood up for all of us. He's showing the world what true leadership looks like." Community organizations also reached out to collaborate with Snoop, inviting him to participate in events that highlighted the importance of equality and diversity. At one such event, a young aspiring musician approached Snoop and said, "You made me believe that I can succeed, no matter what anyone thinks." Snoop smiled and replied, "That's what it's all about, believing in yourself and helping others see their worth." Through his outreach efforts, Snoop Dogg transformed what could have been a moment of humiliation into a lasting movement for respect and equality. His advocacy not only brought attention to systemic issues, but also inspired tangible change within the event industry and beyond. As Snoop reflected on his journey, he felt a sense of pride and purpose. "If one person's actions can spark a movement," he said, "imagine what we can do together." As the sun set and anticipation filled the air, the crowd inside the concert venue buzzed with excitement. The incident from earlier in the day was fresh in everyone's minds, but the audience was now eager to see Snoop Dogg back where he belonged, on stage. Backstage, Snoop stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting his signature shades and flashing a confident smile. Despite the chaos of the day, he was determined to give his fans a night they would never forget. "Time to turn this around," he said to his manager Darius, who nodded with encouragement. When the lights dimmed and the first notes of Snoop's opening track filled the venue, the crowd erupted into cheers. The stage lit up, revealing Snoop standing at its center, his presence commanding and electric. "Good evening, everybody!" Snoop's voice boomed over the speakers, carrying a mix of warmth and authority. The audience responded with deafening applause and chants of his name. Before launching into his performance, Snoop took a moment to address the earlier events. "I know y'all heard about what went down today," he began, his tone calm but firm. "Let me just say this. Respect isn't something you earn based on how you look, where you come from, or who you know. It's something everyone deserves. No questions asked." The crowd roared in agreement, some holding up signs that read, "Respect for Snoop and unity always." Snoop paused, letting the energy in the room settle before continuing. "I'm here tonight because of y'all," he said, pointing to the audience. "This show is for you, so let's put all that negativity behind us and make this a night to remember." With that, the music kicked in, and Snoop launched into his set list, delivering hit after hit with the charisma and energy that had made him a global icon. The crowd danced, sang along, and cheered as Snoop's smooth lyrics and infectious beats filled the air. Throughout the performance, Snoop's ability to connect with the audience was undeniable. During one of his slower tracks, he shared a heartfelt moment with the crowd, thanking them for their unwavering support. "Y'all remind me why I do this," he said. "It's about the love, the unity, and the power we have when we stand together." As the night progressed, the earlier incident faded into the background, replaced by a sense of celebration and togetherness. The audience's energy only grew with each song, and by the time Snoop performed his finale, the venue was alive with joy and excitement. Snoop closed the concert with one of his most iconic tracks, dedicating it to everyone who had ever faced discrimination or prejudice. "This one's for all of us," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Let's keep standing up, keep pushing forward, and keep showing the world what respect really looks like." The crowd erupted into a standing ovation as the final notes played, their applause echoing long after Snoop left the stage. Fans left the venue not only thrilled by the performance, but also inspired by the message of resilience and unity Snoop had delivered. That night, the concert wasn't just a musical event. It became a symbol of strength and change, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there's always room to rise above and create something extraordinary. Months after the incident at the concert, its ripple effects were still being felt. Snoop Dogg's decision to confront prejudice with grace and purpose had sparked a movement that extended far beyond the music industry. At his sprawling studio, Snoop reflected on the journey. As he sipped his morning coffee, he glanced at the framed news articles on the wall, each highlighting different aspects of the story. Snoop Dogg turns prejudice into progress. Concert incident sparks industry reform. And respect overcomes assumptions. A star's powerful stand. The memories of that night were vivid in his mind. What could have been a moment of humiliation had turned into a powerful lesson for all involved. Snoop felt pride not only in how he handled the situation, but in the positive changes that followed. In the weeks following the concert, the event organizers and other industry leaders had taken steps to implement the reforms inspired by Snoop's advocacy. Security teams at major venues underwent mandatory training sessions focused on cultural sensitivity and effective communication. Policies were rewritten to prioritize inclusivity, with clear consequences for discriminatory behavior. Several artists came forward with their own experiences of prejudice, adding momentum to the movement. Snoop, leading by example, collaborated with other musicians and advocacy groups to amplify the message. Together, they pushed for systemic changes in how public spaces and events were managed. Beyond the industry changes, Snoop launched his own initiatives to promote respect and equality. His Respect in Every Space campaign became a cornerstone of his advocacy, funding scholarships for underprivileged youth and training programs for event staff. At a community event in Los Angeles, Snoop addressed a crowd of aspiring artists and industry professionals. "It's not just about being seen or heard," he told them. "It's about being respected, and that's something we all deserve." The audience, a diverse group of people inspired by his words, erupted into applause. Many stayed after the event to thank Snoop personally, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Even Jack Peterson, the security guard who had sparked the controversy, felt the weight of the incident long after it occurred. Following his suspension, Jack completed extensive training and submitted a formal apology to Snoop and the event organizers. In a candid interview months later, Jack admitted, "That night changed me. It forced me to confront my biases and realize how my actions can hurt others. I'm trying to do better now." While Snoop didn't focus on Jack's redemption, he hoped the incident had sparked genuine growth. "It's not about tearing people down," Snoop said in response. "It's about building them up and showing them a better way." As Snoop strolled through the headquarters of his record label one afternoon, he paused to admire a mural on the wall. It featured scenes from his career, including a depiction of the concert that had turned into a cultural milestone. The mural's tagline read, "Stand for respect always."